So good morning, everybody. Today we have Doug Brown from Central Columbia with us. He's going to be talking to us today about Stream ID and the environmental science areas. And Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Beth. Well, welcome everybody to the 2020 virtual PWE conference. Pretty cool. The hats off to the executive committee and everybody involved to try to put this thing on. We're going to start just a little bell ringer here. I want you to watch this video real quick. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, but it's kind of unique. There is sound that goes with it, but you're not going to be able to hear that, I don't think. Just so everybody knows what's going on here, the gentleman out in front of the building is giving directions: left, uphill, short steps, downhill, long steps, and they're moving this storage shed. Maybe some of you guys have seen this live before. That'd be really cool. This was just a video that we came across.
I'm amazed at how fast it moves. Like, it's just really cool to watch their feet.
And it just was posted on YouTube. People just stopped along the road and just saw it happening, and they started videotaping it. So yeah, a lot of money I think was saved there, for sure, and great effort. So the reason we bring that up is we're going to try to run this a little bit like a classroom, a little bell ringer there, in the ideas of thinking about working together to accomplish goals. 300 Amish men built supports and moved a whole storage shed, within a few minutes that they did that. So it's the idea of working together towards a common goal. I think this profession does that. I think today all we want to do is provide you guys with some different thinking or things that we know have worked for us at Central Columbia that we've used in numbers of aspects, either in CD preparation or Envirothon preparation or classroom presentations. And again, we open it up so it's not a webinar to make it so you guys can join in at any point in time. And, hey, we did this or we tried that. I just want to share ideas. That's kind of really what we talked about. Hannah and I talked about here a little over a week ago. So to get us started, just, the introduction has been done. Most of you guys know each other. We won't go through all that, but we'll talk about a little bit about the 3-circle model. Why is that important? So, I could ask questions to Mark Anderson or Dave or Hannah or whoever's on today and say, why is that important? But we'll answer those 4 questions for you. It's important, numbers of reasons why. One, it's what we're based off of. It's that classroom instructions where we start. The FFA gives us that applied application in a competitive mode. And then, of course, the SE gives it to us that real life experience. So let me give you a little bit of a story that goes along with this as an SE project. 2 years ago, our chapter president, Mackenzie Fish, who was a Northern Region star in agribusiness and was a state star finalist 2 years ago at the Pennsylvania Farm Show, had this interest as a 9th grader because she's always involved at outside. And she attended the Wildlife Leadership Academy. She concentrated on the idea of bass and the importance of bass in Pennsylvania, largemouth, smallmouth bass. And of course, knowing that we here in our county, our district is split by the Susquehanna River. and our school's about 200 yards from the river. So we know the smallmouth bass is a great population habitat for this particular species. We also know the smallmouth bass struggle right now in the Susquehanna River. So she did some research studies and had a really great interest in environmental. She ended up actually taking this interest and said to me, Mr. Brown, I want to do an SAE on raising worms. And I'm like, all right, I've been down this road before when I had this butterfly project from Christy Good, Folk at the time, and we were like, that's never going to work. But we knew it did work. So I'm like, oh, I got this handled this time. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this. She did it. She built it into a phenomenal project. She raised her own worms. Long story of it is that she created a great SAE project out of it, created her own business off Route 93 outside of Berwick. This year, when the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, through the COVID, changed the starting opening date of the first day of fishing season, she sold over 9,000 earthworms in 2 hours. So it can be a very profitable business. She sells mealworms and red worms as well, and lots of different types of live bait. So here's an interest that she had from our class that she ventured into an SAE project that has now turned into a business for her as an income as she attends Bloomsburg University in the environmental science department there, concentrating on environmental sciences. So these SAEs can do what they need to do. Really talking to these younger folks right now. So take the 3-circle model seriously, because it is definitely what we are based off of. So as we develop into career development events, numbers of things that we look at. I'm looking at some notes here. In the National FA, it's the Environmental and Natural Resource Management, CDE, that Nationals runs. Here in Pennsylvania, we have the Aquatic CDE and the Environmental and Natural Resources CDE. So items that we're talking about today in aquatics, we can relate to the FFA part of it in those CDEs, those career development events, in that competitive mode. So those opportunities exist for kids and our members out there for sure. Going a little bit further, some community organizations that we've gotten involved with. One of those being our conservation district. A little bit more than probably what most people do, seeing that I serve as the vice chair and public director in the Columbia County Conservation District. We have our meeting tonight, but we work with our watershed specialist, Brittany Hartzell, quite a bit, probably on a week-to-week basis with her, either having her come in virtually or come in live. She does a lot of opportunities and presenting for us, not only there, but also at our environmental center, just outside of Light Street, Pennsylvania, which is in our school district off Interstate 80. Of course, the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission, get to know those waterway officers. Aaron Lupacini is our waterway officer here for Columbia County. He's in quite frequently with us. Our kids know him. Mark knows this history a little bit, probably nobody else does, but my first opportunity that I turned down was with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission in March of 1991. It was my first job opportunity, turned it down. Benner Springs Fish Hatchery outside of State College between there and Bellefonte. Had the opportunity to turn that job down. We're going to work on the American Shad project, trying to bring the American Shad back into the waterways of Susquehanna. The issue with that is it was third shift at night on the river. Not sure I'm about that. Nothing good happens after 10 for me. So wasn't a good opportunity for me. So I turned that job down. But lots of opportunity out there. And the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission is a great organization to work with. Yeah, go for it.
We have a question from Hannah. Where would we find our local waterway officer? Where would you recommend that they look for that person?
That person is going to be found on the Pennsylvania Game Commission or Fish Commission's website. And there's a locator there that you can look at and find your county and find that waterway officer on the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission's website. Yep. Trout Unlimited, obviously that private organization. We have one here in Columbia County, a great working relationship with them. Of course, with Smart Angler. Smart Angler is how those younger kids get involved in angling, in fishing. Of course, That's something that my daughter and I do quite a bit, is fish. So again, I have a personal interest in that. So it's that take on that aspect as well. And then trout in the classroom. Farm Bureau can help with that. Trout Unlimited can help with that. You got to get a sponsorship for that. Our middle school ag teacher, Jen Fisher, runs our trout in the classroom program. From our program from K to 12, she's in charge of that at the middle school level. So these are some of the organizations that you can get involved with, that's going to help you with your aquatic education, that's for sure. So we're going to talk a little bit about some resources. There's trout in the classroom, right? Something that you can get involved with. Again, there's a little bit of an expense with it, but if you can get it sponsored, well, usually with Trout Unlimited, they'll sponsor it for you. It's something you can connect with, that's for sure. So again, you're working with Trout Unlimited, and you're working with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission in the same right for that. So some resources, we talk about resources. Of course, the Pennsylvania FFA and National FFA organizations are great resources. The Envirothon, that's what I'm going to have Beth go to next, is the Envirothon website. As she brings that up, of course, Project Wet is a great example as well. So is Wiki Watershed. That's a great opportunity. Turninggreen.org, great organization that also provides opportunities as we look at virtual learning. And of course, agetnet.com. That's also an opportunity there as well. But let's concentrate a little bit on some activities. That's why we're here today. Concentrate on some activities that we know work pretty well. And it begins with the Envirothon website. Underneath the Pennsylvania website, which is, again, envirothonpa.org, envirothonpa.org, or just Google PA Envirothon, you'll get the same result. Underneath station training, we go to aquatic ecology. And if your districts are anything like our districts, obviously standards are pretty important. So you go to aquatic ecology, and you'll end up bringing up all the standards that relate to the aquatic section. So if that's what your district is looking at and looking to do, that's where that'll come up at. So again, a little lagging here today, but the essential topic.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, we're lagging here today a little bit. Must be the weather. Essential topics, right? There's all the different aspects. We're not going to be able to get through all of those today, but at least I wanted to show you where those resources are. This is the backbone of what we do in aquatics in environmental science here at Central Columbia. We go to learning objectives. That's going to give you all of the standards with environment and ecology, career education and work, science and technology. So again, don't reinvent the wheel. Think smarter, not harder. And all these are listed for you, and there they are. So if you're putting together your units and you're putting together new lessons or updating your lessons for this new virtual world that we're in, there they are. That's for sure. But the main guts of what we really wanted to look at was the reference materials listed, and this was for 2020. So again, that was for this current year. And of course, we know that none of the Envirothons occurred this year, nor did the state Envirothon. So those are all blows to the kids' opportunity. However, in the mailings that I sent to Beth and Hannah and John Seaman, and now are in the Google Drive and in the repository for the Center for Professional Development, one thing that the Envirothon did do was a challenge, was a weekly challenge when the state Envirothon would occur during the week of May 18th. And in that, I added the challenge that the kids were given aquatically. And it's something that you can use as a reference for the future. It's not on this particular site, but it is in the Google Drive and it is in the repository. So that's something that's there for you guys as you look at it. And it's the idea of what they did virtually with the kids this year. And yeah, let's see if we can find it there. Right down there at the bottom, Thirsty Thursday. Yep. So as Beth shares this with you, this was the Thirsty Thursday. These are some of the IDs that were here. Now, when Hannah and I talked, we talked a lot about IDs um, stream IDs. And we know that macroinvertebrates are the most difficult to ID. However, in the Envirothon, aquatics involves reptiles, amphibians, which involve all your frogs, snakes, toads, lizards, skinks, salamanders, all your fishes, and obviously all your macroinvertebrates. And that's kind of what we're going to concentrate on today. But these were the IDs that were done on the virtual Envirothon this year, right? There's the American shad, right? And of course, everybody knows that our state fish is the brook trout, um, native to Pennsylvania, cold water fish, and so there you go. But it gives you some of these aspects of what the questions were for the students in this virtual challenge they had this year. So it kind of gives you a pathway, a roadmap, if you're looking to change some of your instruction, to what the Envirothon's testing these students on. Unfortunately, as teachers, we never get a chance to see those type of things, which has always been a negative I've addressed with Laurel. So they're coming a little bit better with the educator to open it up to us a little bit to say, hey, what's the kid actually looking at? It's pretty difficult to teach when you don't know what the target is. You're always guessing all the time. That's the only struggle with the Envirothon. But that's part of it, I guess. But some fact sheets that we can go over. First of all, what can you do with these students in the ideas of virtuality and e-learning and distant learning is research on our state fish. You know, they could put together a PowerPoint. They could do a small video, especially early in the year. They could go out, actually maybe get to a brook stream and that type of thing and do an actual little video or research project on that particular species being our state fish, the brook trout. The other thing that we've done is we have each student put together an aquatic poster. And with that aquatic poster, what we do is we have them choose the species that are highlighted for that year. And that's on the reference list. That's on the next tab at the bottom of that, Beth, down at the bottom there. Yeah. There's the species. There's some of the plants that are targeted for that particular year. And then if you go to the identification study list, the last tab, this gives you what the Envirothon was going to concentrate on for this year. Knowing that the Envirothon did not occur and talking to Laurel, who is the director for the Pennsylvania FA or Pennsylvania Envirothon, that these species probably will stick for next year as well. So these are some of the aspects we look at. So if you look on there, you can see the invertebrates. We're going to concentrate on some of those today. Caddisfly, crayfish, right? Damselfly, dragonflies, mayflies, stoneflies, right? Maybe you knew what some of these whirligig beetles, maybe you knew what some of these were. As an educator, maybe you don't know what some of these are, and you're afraid to teach those IDs or subject matter because you don't know. That's okay. You can learn with the kids. That's not going to be an issue at all. Use a lot of their knowledge. Find out which one of those kids or students are actually spending a lot of time outside fishing and use them to your advantage. But these resources that they've listed and the resources that we provided you in the repository and then the Google Drive really will help you with those identifications for sure. But I think we need to go back and talk a little bit about the ideas of what is the water cycle, right? I'm not going to spend your time doing that, but I think you need to go back as a really good review in this aquatics and talk about the water cycle. I think you need to talk about some terms that I put on the agenda list like turbidity, surface tension, those types of factors that come into play, and then define what streams actually are. What's the difference between a stream, a brook, a creek, a run, those type of things? Kids have no clue. And all it bounces about volume of water, speed of water, and the size of that water. That's where it all comes from. And again, that's all found in that Google Drive and the information I've sent Beth and Hannah. The other aspect is what's a watershed? So if we would go up to Beth, if we could go, what is a watershed? Yep. Let's see here. Yep, go in that aquatic section. Yep. And well, I'll let her you bring that up
Okay.
for us. Well, what's a
So,
watershed? Students don't have a real clue what that watershed is. So we have to go keep third tab. F.
third tab. Sorry, I missed it.
Yep. All right. Nope. Nope. Aquatic. Yep. There you go. Just the third green tab, essential topics, and then just in the reference material. There you go. And then we look at that aspect of it is, what are the watersheds? So it's real important that you understand what the watersheds actually are. So if you go through water flows through Pennsylvania, this is one of the ideas that you talk about in the aspects of all the different watersheds in Pennsylvania and how large they are. And here they are. And you have to relate, where are you at in the state of Pennsylvania? And you don't realize how large the Susquehanna watershed is. That's the watershed we live in here in Columbia County. How large it actually is. It's the largest watershed in Pennsylvania. But what are all the watersheds? And the kids need to know that. That's one of the very first steps of knowing what a watershed is. Now, watershed's an area or land or ridge that separates waters flowing to different rivers, basins, and seas. Of course, in the Susquehanna, we're going to flow, a lot of our water is going to go to the Chesapeake Bay. Oh, that's right. All of it's going to go to the Chesapeake Bay. And we're the larger contributor to the Chesapeake Bay. So it's the largest bay in the country, for sure. And you just look at that aspect of where we are, and you look at all the different watersheds and miles of water, 86,000 miles of water in the state of Pennsylvania. So when folks say that Pennsylvania is not a water state, that's not true. We are, that's for sure. So again, wherever you're living gives you that aspect. So we talk about, just for a second, we talk about streams. There are different types of streams, first order streams, second order streams, and third order streams. And it all depends on what their tributaries are. So that little brook that pops out of the ground is going to be a first order stream. And then as we go along, that next stream is that second order stream that has, two tributaries, and the third order stream like the Susquehanna, who has multiple tributaries, which is pretty unique. Then we enter, of course, we venture off into the Amazon. The Amazon River is the largest river volume-wise in the world. 65% of the world's river water flows in the Amazon with over 11,000 tributaries. It is an amazing river in South America. So it's really cool. We talk about that. Then we talk about the Nile and, of course, all those factors. But the aspect of that is the Amazon is a really wild aquatic habitat for sure. So we talk a little bit about international waters as well, because it leads us into invasive species, unfortunately. But before we talk about invasive species today, stream temperatures obviously call into play. Cold water streams, cool water streams, and warm water streams, all banked off of temperature, what it's banked off of. And look here real quick. You go to the pond stream guide underneath fact sheets. This is a great way for the kids to understand, not every fish likes it 75 degrees. Your sunfish family does, but your trouts don't. So this gives you an idea, breakdown of cold water fishes, cool water fishes, and warm water fishes and where they exist at. And then that leads us into the key to the micro and macro invertebrate life, which blows students' minds. They have no clue that all these little organisms exist in Fishing Creek or Pine Creek or the Susquehanna River. They have no clue. These guys are food sources for these larger organisms, but also real indicators of stream quality. If I have a bunch of leeches in my stream, I probably have a pretty poor quality stream water. If I have a bunch of mayfly, caddisfly, stonefly, my water quality is really good. I don't need to run a chemical test on that stream for that to occur. So that leads me into the next project you could have students do is go out and do a small stream investigation in and around their house community, take the temperature of the water, being safe, obviously, but not getting physically in the water. Look at its turbidity. Um, how clear is the water? Take its temperature, and then see what species they can find in there. That's a great activity. It's one that we do in class all the time, but we also have streams that are very close to us on our school property that are tributaries of the Susquehanna River. And then, of course, we involve the whole pH factor comes into play down there. Um, Dissolved oxygen content. You get all the chemistry of water. We're not going to do that today, but you could definitely go into that venture as a whole nother lab. What I'm presenting to you today is a multiple extended learning lesson, that's for sure. Not a different ventures here. When we teach this particular unit, we're looking at 36 days of aquatics is what we're looking for. So we do quite a bit of it in a short period of time. Then we look at the ideas of stream and channel shape. Susquehanna River, U-shaped versus the Allegheny River being V-shaped. There are 6 major rivers in the state of Pennsylvania, along with those watersheds, but you have lots of little tributaries that come into play. So what's the stream shape look like? V-shaped or U-shaped? U-shaped, going to be a lot of volume, but slow moving, usually, Susquehanna River. V-shaped, Allegheny River, not a lot of volume, but a lot of speed. So we also know that speed kills. So when we have a flood, we've had 7 in our area since I've been here at Central Columbia, unfortunately. So if it can happen once, it can happen again. Our last one was 2014, major flood here. And so we know that speed, when water gets increased in speed, it's an issue. So that's when wetlands become an important factor in slowing water down, allowing sedimentation to settle, cleaning of water naturally, and overall helping the overall habitat of a lot of macro and micro invertebrates for sure. So stream orders, stream temperature, stream shape. One of the things that we do is we quiz the kids on all of that. It's an activity you can do, obviously in class, or it's one you could do virtually. Have them identify where the watersheds are, where the rivers are. Could be even locally for your own spectrum. One of the things that we invested in was the Higbee map. The Higbee map is the map done by William Higbee from Williamsport. It shows all of the streams, tributaries, and watersheds in Pennsylvania. It's a phenomenal map. It's big, but it's a phenomenal map. That's for sure. The Higbee stream map here in Pennsylvania. So one of the things you also could do is a reading assignment. And Beth, if you want to scroll so I can see up a little bit so we can see. Yep, there we go. Should be an article called River Runs Through It. Yep, River Runs Through It. Very first one. This is one of the ones we start with the students. It's an article that the Envirothon is famous for pulling information from the most obscured places. And this is an article they love to pull from. And it could be one sentence in there talking about habitat or whatever. So this one's talking about different. You can see a water penny there. See a brook trout. You can see black-nosed dace, smallmouth bass we talked about, freshwater clams. This is an article that we have the students read, and then we have a little writing assignment that goes with them. One thing you have to understand is that Central Columbia is an LFS school. So we're a learning focused school. So we do a lot of reading and writing to help not only educate the student on the subject matter, but help our, how do I say it, our Keystone exam scores. So that's kind of why we do that. And it has definitely helped us here for sure. And we help that cause, environmentally and ag-wise, by having them read these articles and then do a little writing on them. So that's also something that you could do virtually, very simply put, if we have to go back to that. Hopefully we don't, but sure looks like we might have to. One of the other things we've talked about is stream observation, stream depth, stream measurement. You could take the volume flow. So a real simple activity we do when we're live is that we actually have the students get in the water, bring their boots, waders, whatever to school that day, And then we measure the depth, obviously when the water's controllable. Measure the depth, measure the width, so it's applied math a little bit. And then we pick point A and point B. We take a tennis ball. Being an athletic type person, I contact our tennis coach, and he gives me his old tennis ball that we may lose, hopefully not. And we place that in the water, and we measure the time, the distance from point A to point B. And then what we end up doing is we take the time, and we look at that aspect, and what's the volume and speed, knowing that speed formula is distance divided by time. So they're learning a little bit about applied math in an environmental situation. So again, we're trying to help that simple math concept, but apply it to something that the kids probably have an interest in, and it probably not being math. You can kind of show I'm not a math guy. So, yeah. So that's one of those aspects that we look at that way. They could take photos of streams and brooks and rivers and determine their order. That's something that they could easily do. Was it a first order, second order stream? And then a thing called Herp Sweet Home. Herp Sweet Home is an activity that's done. Right there it is. Yep. This is all about designation of ID of habitat and ID of what can you find in that area. So when Hannah and I talked, is it going to be just based off of the ideas of macroinvertebrates? Well, we'll eventually get there. We're going to run out of time today, but I think you have to understand where they come from, first of all. So this Herp Sweet Home is an activity that we do that allows them to identify different habitats, and you can see it there as Beth scrolls it up, a dichotomous key to different Pennsylvania habitats. And then they have photos, if she would scroll up a little bit. They have different habitat photos, and the kids have to determine through the dichotomous key, what is that clue card? What is that? You know, what kind of habitat is that? Is that a, you know, is that a stream? Is that a brook? Is that a river? Is that a intermittent stream? I mean, it only occurs occasionally. Is that a rock outcropping? What is that? Some of those are aquatic related, some of them aren't. But that's a great activity to do. The Envirothon does that all the time. You can almost guarantee that's a perennial activity that they'll do with the students to grade them out. So, Herp Sweet Home. And then we didn't bring it up today, but what I did with Beth and Hannah was I took a photo of all the different macroinvertebrates, and it's in the Google Drive, right, Beth?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it's in the Google Drive, all the different types of macroinvertebrates that are out there, from the crazy crayfish to, you can just touch on any, it doesn't matter, to, let's go to, yeah, there you go. So most people would have no clue what that is, right? So on the left, it's a freshwater shrimp, right? So again, these are all food sources for these animals. These are all called true bugs. In the aquatic world, these are called true bugs. So what we did for you was, I think I gave you the card as well, that gave you, for the teacher side, gave you information that talked about what that true bug was, habitat, size, identification, and all those factors. And I'm hoping that's kind of what Hannah was after a little bit when we talked about this particular workshop. So that gives you one aspect. So you could use those cards as ID. Let's talk about invasives for a minute. Yep, there's a general body form of, you could do ID with that as well. You could do quizzing on body parts, because the Envirothon is looking for quick recall. So is the FFA CDE looking for quick recall. So it's not write me a 5-paragraph paper, give me quick recall within 20 seconds, name those parts. So again, that's what we do as well. I know it's not high on Bloom's taxonomy, I get it, but the Envirothon sometimes isn't high in the Bloom's taxonomy either. So I'm trying to show you some tricks and tips to some of the things that have helped us be successful at the State Envirothon. If you would just tag on one of, like, the stonefly, Beth, that card, yeah, the next one over. There you go. This is just an ID card that you guys now have access to. This came from the litter pack, actually from forestry suppliers, but we know that A lot of these guys are shredders. They're part of the titrus food chain. It gives them order. It gives them key characteristics on what this particular macroinvertebrate looks like. That'd be a stonefly. I was trying to provide you guys, because I know when I go to workshops, I'm looking for stuff that I can use. Tell me all you want, but I want something when I go back home. What can I use? And I think this is something that you guys could use, because I've used it in class for sure. Talk about body parts and ID and that type of thing. So lots of aspects there that you guys can utilize through the Google Drive there for sure. And then let's go to the crazy crayfish one. Well, we're bringing that stuff up. Yeah, the Stroud Water Center is a great way. Sarah brought that up. Is a great organization. We've worked with them a lot. The Stroud Water Center has a lot of opportunities across the board aquatically, that's for sure. But we also work on the ideas of play. Play is the Pennsylvania League of Angling Youth, right? Pennsylvania League of Angling Youth. You might have to go out of that one, Beth, and into the reference list on the Envirothon website, Crazy Crayfish. Yep. But the Pennsylvania League of Angling Youth is a great example. I think it's up a little bit. And again, you can see all the invertebrates, but we want to do the crayfish here today real quick. So the crazy crayfish, again, this is we do a quiz on parts. We also actually, what I do with the students is I purchase clams and we dissect clams in class, why they filters, how they determine that. And then we also, we'll say it this way, we have a food science lab at our place. So one thing we do is we do a surf and turf day, surf and turf lab. We bring in lobster, we dissect lobster, and then the next day we actually cook it up and eat it. It's pretty cool. So we call that surf and turf day. So again, talking about the aspects that crayfish are a delicatessen or a food source, especially in the deep South here in the United States. But again, something that can be consumed. But we also got to be aware that the rusty crayfish is an invasive species here in the state of Pennsylvania. That's a whole nother workshop on invasives, but the rusty crayfish is one of those aspects that comes into play. So the students got to know the difference between an Allegheny crayfish and a little brown crayfish versus a rusty crayfish. There's a difference there. Though rusty crayfish are much larger. They take over habitat. That's the problem with most of our invasives, which you guys all know that. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by that, but they just take over habitat, and that's an issue. So there's the rusty crayfish. There he is. Again, how do most of these guys get to us? Through ballast water in shipping containers or boats, ships that come into the Great Lakes, into the Port of Philadelphia from Asia. Not going to call anybody out, but that's where most of our issues come from. And we've got a little bit better handle on trying to regulate those types of things, like the spotted lanternfly, which affects our forest world. But there's from purple loosestrife to hydrilla to didymo, which is rock snot, to the round goby, to zebra mussel. To really, all these factors come into play. So again, you guys could do a very easy workshop lab lesson on just invasives, an invasive ID. And we usually take 2 or 3 days and do that. And their actual aquatic poster that we do is actually done on the invasive. They pick an invasive, they present it. This year we had to do it, and late in this class, we had to do ours on a different platform because we were virtual. So the kids actually presented. I forced them to create their own YouTube channel, record their item, and then share it with their entire class. And that's what we would do live in front of the classroom is what we would actually do. Okay. So that gives us those ideas as well. Beth's giving me the 5 signal, so we're going to get moving. But thank you for that. That's why she's a great assistant. So we look at those factors that come into play. If we go to the ENA and ELPA one now, ENA and ELPA is, the kids got to understand, is it ENA or is it ELPA? First of all, I think it's up a little bit. Yep, right there. Yep. They got to understand, is it egg, nymph, and adult, or is it egg, larva, pupa, adult? And they have no clue. Like, what are you talking about? This is actually in the Keystone exam for the bio Keystone. This is part of it, the ENA and alpha factor. And what the Envirothon will do is they'll pick, and I'm going to have Beth pick one here, but we're going to choose one. Is it ENA and alpha? And tell me why. So these are something that the students need to learn from a basics of aquatics. Here you're looking at all the species that are ENA and all the species that are alpha. And the kids need to understand that part. So there at the bottom, you're looking at caddisfly stage in the alpha stage right there. So that gives you an example of some of the IDs that are done. So we go back, Beth, if we would go to the caddisfly, let's just look at that one for a minute since it brought it up. If we go down to, yep, there you go. And we're trying to show you the website so you can kind of have an idea. I'm a guy that grew up in no technology, so I would want people to show me where the stuff is versus just tell me where it is. Here's a Smart Angler notebook, again, talking about caddisflies and all the different stages and what they actually look like. We run an outdoor adventure camp for after activities week each year through our 3rd through 6th graders. Anybody wants to come, they can come. We didn't do it this year because of COVID, but we talk about that. One of the things we do with the students, we get them in a stream, and I always show them all the different types of ID. They just think that caddisfly casing is just a bunch of, actually they have no clue what it is. They think it's stone or whatever, and they have no idea that that's actually a casing for a caddisfly that's a macroinvertebrate live in this stream. So it's really cool that the younger students get a chance to ID that, but also the older students, it's a great review for them because it's something that they need to know for the Envirothon and for the FFA Environmental Natural Resources CDE. So we got to kind of go from there. All right.
Hey, Doug, there's a question in the chat there, Sarah.
Let me get to it. Yeah, Stroud had a lot of them there.
Can't see the chat.
Resources.
Yeah, I can see it. Yep. Resources platforms you can recommend for citizens science as relates to aquatics. Yeah, so we're looking at the ideas of, your Trout Unlimited. That's a great resource. Again, the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission is another great resource. Turning Green is a website that I found that works really well for that as well. And just your overall, your conservation districts, your watershed specialists are a great way there to utilize those sources. And what I did was at the bottom of the agenda page, I provided you a link that was done. It's called Backyard Home Repair. And I hope you guys are going to be able to use that. If you look at the agenda page, if Beth can bring that up for me. Our watershed specialist, Brittany Hartzell, who's a Central Columbia graduate, Bloomsburg University graduate, has started to do these online sources with my assistance. And she does this for anybody that wants to. We had 247 folks attend this particular link at the bottom, and it was Backyard Home Repair webinar. And that was done by Penn State University and Extension. But I attended that one, and it was really good. And again, most conservation districts are trying to reach out to every citizen that's out there that's, in their district, that's for sure. But this Penn State recording that Extension did a really good job as well. So hopefully you can use that in the classroom. Along with my last little bit is that the videos. Pennsylvania fisheries video, habitat improvement videos, raising trout. If you just Google those, they come right up, and there's a lot of different videos that can be used for sure. Again, this was a long webinar. This was an hour-long webinar on backyard repair. But again, you could use that recording to do it. But lots of videos out there and lots of resources for sure. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is another great source. That's for sure. That you can utilize resources. Whatever you can dream up, think of, access to is usable here in the e-learning world. We've learned that really quickly. And I just want to provide you guys with some of that information. And you can see some of the information that's in, this is from the Google folder, right, Beth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So
This is from the Google folder that I provided to her. But in the repository from the springtime has a lot more information in it as well. So don't reinvent the wheel. It's already been done for you. Use a lot of this stuff. That's why we wanted to present that. And wow, look at that. That's the repository that the center has put together. Hats off to you guys for doing that, Beth and John and Tiffany. You guys did a great job putting that together. And if anybody can ever contribute to it, go for it. I've done so. A lot of resources there as we learn and we head into this e-learning world. How this workshop, really what I wanted to provide you guys was resources with it, and all the different types of IDs that can be done. And hopefully we got some things accomplished there. So again, my door is always open to you guys. You guys know that. Email, phone call, text message, whatever. We'll try to help you out the best we can and provide your resources, whatever it may be. So again, we're not the experts at it, that's for sure.
Okay, folks, I am going to stop the record button here. And then we